than practical. Way more than merely factual. If you wanna know the secrets of a life, it's free. Listen to girls behaving metaphysically. Listen to girls behaving metaphysically.
Welcome to Girls Behaving Metaphysically. Your hosts are two girls who believe that life is awesome, that laughter heals, and that it's possible to find deep spiritual insights in everyday experience. Join Robin Rice and Sumaya Wood for this week's adventure.
Hey everyone, I'm Sumaya Wood.
And I'm Robin Rice.
And we are Girls Behaving Metaphysically. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Woohoo, It's here again.
And it's March.
And I had one of those weeks where I thought like the days were all off. You know, those days where you think it should be later or you think it should be earlier.
What day is it?
I thought yesterday was Thursday. No, it was Thursday. That was right.
I was going to say you thought right.
No, Wednesday I thought was Thursday. Like I was so ready to do the show the next day, and I'm like, you
just couldn't wait to see me.
That's it.
Obviously,
you got it. You got it.
Obviously,
not only you, but our throngs of listeners.
Obviously,
hello throngs. We've missed you.
Yes. And so if you have watched us for a while, you know the drill. If you are joining us live, say hello in the comments. Let us know that you're here and where you are joining us from. And if you are catching this on the replay, just type in #replay and say hello. And today kicks off what I think is going to be an awesome month. Is it just me? I'm really excited.
No, I'm excited. I like to get past February.
Yeah.
I mean, I like I like to get the short month out of the way.
What have you got against February? February is your birth month.
I know. I love February. I love it, but it comes and goes so quickly.
Hey, Carol. I see Carol. Welcome. Good to see you. And
you remind me of the those cartoon shows growing up. Like, I see Carol, I see Bobby.
That would be Romper Room. They never saw me.
I know, right?
Never saw me. I felt so dejected as a child.
I know.
Yes, no, but I'm excited because of our theme this month. This is March 5th, Carol. Yes. All day, as I tell my husband, all day, March 5th.
See, she was confused with her week too.
I know.
It's in the air.
And it's only going to get better next week because I think next week is Spring Forward. Next Saturday.
Oh.
Yeah, good times. So I was excited about, not because the shortest month of the year is over. I was excited about our topic this month, our theme.
Yeah.
Spring cleaning.
Yes. Tell us about that theme.
I don't know. It just feels so perfect for just given the past 12 months. For all of us, we have collectively picked up all kinds of physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, just dust bunnies. And so this month is just a chance to explore all of the ways that we can do our own detox. See what I did there? Because detox is our topic for today. And so with crafty. That,
You're so crafty.
I am. I'm a little punchy today. I'm just going to warn you and our guest. So Peter Bedard is our guest, and I'm excited because I think today's show is going to be amazing. Peter has healed himself of everything from chronic anxiety to arthritis, asthma, fibromyalgia, depression, sciatica, and he's died before and come back to a body racked in pain, a mind trapped in fear, and a spirit broken. Studies with an MA in consciousness studies and extensive training in hypnotherapy, Peter has helped heal thousands of people, and he leverages his own experience. He's healed from all of those things that I mentioned and more, and he can help you do the same. And so with that, let's welcome Peter Bedard. Yay!
Oh my gosh.
Peter!
Yay! Crowd roar.
Okay,
Oh my God.
sorry, Carol.
I have to remember spiritual dust bunnies.
I just made it up.
Yeah, that was good. Spiritual dust bunnies. You're cleaning it
So,
out.
so Carol also joining in on that dust bunny parade. How about fat giant chocolate rabbits? I'm with
Sounds
Carol.
good. I'm right there with you, Carol.
Only if it's dark chocolate. Dark chocolate, 70% plus.
Oh, you're on. Yeah, talking my language.
Exactly. So Peter, it sounds like you've had quite the journey. So why don't you tell us a little bit about everything that you've been through, how you kind of got to where you are now?
Okay, well, I'll condense the story down because it's a long one. So many years ago, somebody slammed me into the back of a semi truck. I was on a bike. They came up behind me. They pushed my back tire. I slammed into the back of that semi truck. I jumped out of my body and got to watch the whole experience. There's a whole story about going on the other side, which you can find out about in my book. But I came back to a body that was just destroyed. So I had a shattered left knee. My knee was in little bits. And I split my right wrist open. This wrist popped open, lost all the nerves in this hand. I had cracked 5 vertebrae. I had undiagnosed brain damage. And that set me on what I call a cascade of pain that lasted for decades. I had to learn how to walk again, and I had arthritis. And in my 20s, I had severe arthritis, disability in walking and moving. Brain damage affected my ability to go to college and think. I would replace words. I would think one word and another word would come out of my mouth. And then I would be conscious of that, but I wouldn't know what do you do with it? Or I'd see a word and I wouldn't know. I would know that I know the meaning of that word, but I couldn't tell you in that moment what the meaning of that word was. One time I forgot what the meant, and I spent an entire day trying to remember what the was. It was
So you had to
humorous,
literally start from scratch.
yeah, exactly. It was humorous, but it was disturbing.
Yeah, understandable.
So, yeah, I had to heal myself of all these things, and the doctors were amazing at putting my bones back together. Man, they flew in 14 surgeons to the NFL to put my leg back together. It was incredible. But after that, they had no idea what to do with me. But they just kept giving me more drugs. They wanted to give me, well, this pharmaceutical might help, or this pharmaceutical might help. And then they would say the same thing about surgeries, where they would say, well, I think we could do this surgery. It might change things. It might help you out. I wasn't interested in maybes. So instead, I just was in pain. I was in ridiculous amounts of pain to the point where I disconnected from my body. I was working at a job and I was meeting a friend at another city after this job. So I was traveling and I was waiting in the lobby of this restaurant for a friend. And a guy came up to me, total stranger, came up to me and said, "Are you okay?" And I kind of gave him this look like, yeah, why? Do I know you? Right? And his response was to say, well, you're crying.
Wow.
I had no idea. I had tears pouring down my face. I had no idea that I was crying. I had disconnected from my body so much. So I had to get on this healing journey, and I had to understand that healing is something that we all need to do, that every wound, whether its causation was a physical causation, a mental causation, or a spiritual causation, every wound also has a physical, mental, and spiritual side to it. I like to say, when my professional football players come to me now, it's obvious they have a busted up knee, but their heads are in absolute panic mode. Like their heads are, what's going to happen to the season? What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my contract? What's going to happen to that $14 million house I just bought? Right? And then their hearts are breaking. Yeah. And their hearts, they're playing ball is what these guys have done their whole lives. It's what they know. It's how they know how to be. Exactly. It's how they identify. It's their life purpose. And so that wound must be addressed physically, but it also must be addressed mentally and spiritually. And I put together a process for myself to do that. In the beginning, I used to call it my holistic cocktail, which I really enjoyed, because at the time in the 90s, people were combining drugs. In the late 90s, they were looking at drugs and drug combinations for HIV and for cancer, stuff of that sort. And I thought, well, gosh, that's a great idea, but what would a holistic cocktail be? And then people often talk about this body, mind, spirit stuff, but I would ask people and I'd be like, so what does that mean? And nobody knew. And I'd ask practitioners, well, how do you apply body, mind, spirit to your practice? You know, I once had a YouTube show, right? And I'd ask these practitioners about what they do and have them talk about what they do. And then I would say, well, how does body, mind, fear, spirit fit into that? And they'd be like, oh, well, we just have to know that we have to have faith in our healing. And that's fantastic, but it's not active. And it doesn't let me know, as somebody who's in pain, what do I do next? Because I'm looking for somebody to guide me, to help me. I'm hurting, right?
Yeah.
So I started this process for healing that became known as Convergence Healing. And I was blessed to have my book published by Simon & Schuster and consult at Stanford University. And I've got to teach all over the globe and have clients from all over the globe. But I understood that not only did that healing have to happen at the same time, it had to be guided from my own inner wisdom.
Yeah.
So I started developing a relationship, kind of like a Gestalt technique of talking to the pain, talking with the pain. So instead of treating the pain as something that we want to get rid of and throw away, and we're embarrassed or angry at it or frustrated with it, right? Like we have these horrible conversations with these parts of ourselves that if we had them verbally with another person, we'd have a restraining order against it, right? Seriously, we speak
I'm smiling because I can totally relate, because
right.
that inner gremlin that we all have in our head is like the meanest kid on the block.
Absolutely. And it wants what it wants,
Well, and it goes to our show that we did on what are you saying yes to? Like how when we're listening to those voices, we're actually endorsing that on some level.
Absolutely we are. And we're continuing these belief patterns that are often subconscious, right? That keep us small or keep us in pain, right?
Absolutely.
So I had to look at my own pain and I had to say, yes, I was slammed in the back of a semi-truck, but that pain, my body pain, although it sounds like a big deal, and it was, cracking your vertebrae and shattering your knee and splitting your head open, all that, that's a big deal. But the real wound for me was in my heart. Although that happened to my body, I was I wouldn't push it as far as to say a child prodigy, but I was close to it. I was someone who, there's different body types, right? There's a basketball player's body type, right? And there's a football player body type and a runner's body type. Well, I had a dancer's body type, and I was discovered as a kid as a dancer. And it was my joy. It was the place when I was discovered and I started in classes. Within a year, I was a TA, and it was my home. Yeah. And when my leg was shattered, it was the first time that I'd found home and lost home. Right? I didn't feel at home in my body, in my life, as who I was prior to being discovered as a dancer and doing that. And then that pain of losing my identity, my life purpose. I had my life planned out. I was going to be a professional dancer. I was going to audition for some of the big troupes, and then I was going to go to Broadway, and I was going to teach, and I could also sing and act. So I was going to do a bunch of that stuff too. And I was a child actor, so I had already had all that training under my belt. For one of my first shows was with a 5,000 seat house, like as an actor, right? I was just very lucky. That was my trajectory in life. And then to have that all taken away, right? To not be able to walk, to not be able to move, it felt like I lost my voice, like that heart had been ripped out of me. And I spent years trying to find my life purpose and stumbling from one thing to another. And that idea of like your theme of detoxing, right? I had to detox my brain. My brain was so stuck on being a victim. Yeah. My brain was so sliding comfortably into that experience of being a victim to the world. Life was what happened to me. Look at this awful thing that happened to me. And that experience of being below the line and there's no co-creating, right? Mm-hmm. And so I had to clear out those old thoughts and opinions. I had to see myself differently.
Yeah.
I had to perceive who I wanted to be before I got to be him.
Yeah.
And then I had to teach my body that. And that's when I started to develop a relationship with the parts of my body that were suffering. So like for me, it was talking to my bones, talking to my knee, my back, my head, right?
Yeah.
Talking to these parts of me that were suffering. And when my knee collapsed on me while I was walking someplace, not to be mad at my knee and to be grateful for it, to say things like, knee, I am so happy. Thank you so much. You've been working so hard today, right?
Yeah.
You've given me your best. And I am so grateful for that. Instead of being mad at it, which is what my old approach was. Like, Jesus Christ, what the hell? Why are you doing this? I'm so embarrassed. I'm ashamed of it. I'm angry at it. No. To take it back and say, you've been struggling and you've been working so hard. And I'm so grateful for that. You know, one of my clients with a heart condition taught me that, right? Their heart was suffering. Their heart was only working at a low capacity. And I said, what would it be like to thank the part of your heart that's still working? Because it's still keeping you alive. Yeah. And my knee was still letting me walk. Even if it was a struggle, it was still letting me walk. Right. And so I started to get out of my head and go into my heart. And I started to talk to my knee and say, what do you need specifically? What do you need to feel better? And then I started applying that body, mind, spirit approach, right? What do you need physically? What can I do physically for you that's going to help you? I know what the doctors say.
Right.
What the doctors say, that was good advice, but it wasn't always what my knee needed. When my knee blew out on me at one point, the doctor said, do not walk, elevate it, ice it constantly, take all these anti-inflammatories, right? And it just didn't feel right. It's accepted medical practice, but it didn't feel right for my knee. So my knee wanted to move. And I knew I couldn't just get up and walk. I had canes and crutches and stuff like that to help me walk. But I started to say, okay, my brain is telling me you can't walk. The doctors say. Right. I respect the doctors. I'm not going to overdo it. I'm not going to push it. But my knee, my heart is saying move. So how can I allow my knee to move?
So first, let me just jump in with some comments. So Bonnie, interesting guest tonight. She wants to know if you have a book, and yes, we'll show you that in a minute. Bonnie joins us from Ireland, and
oh my God, I love Ireland. I've taught a couple times in Ireland.
And she loves the restraining order against our inner critics, as do we all. So what kind of, when you are going through that process, what does that look like for you? Are you going into a meditation? Are you kind of having a running dialogue with your knee or your heart, or how does that work? How do you do it? And how do you work through that with your clients?
So it depends on the client. When a client comes to me, some clients are more tuned into their bodies. They're more willing to have these kind of conversations. It's easier for them to do that. If the client doesn't have that past experience to support a conversation like that, some clients come and they're so in their head and they're so on the surface that they don't know how to go deep. They don't know how to listen. So those clients, I start teaching them tools. I start teaching them meditation tools, hypnosis tools, listening tools, right? And we start to go to these parts, and I ask that part to take on a shape or a form, because a neuroscientist taught me that when we can perceive something in our brain, such as a shape or a form, then the brain can work with that experience. Okay. Right? So if it's pain is so big, like a wet blanket. It's so massive. It just overwhelms my brain and shuts my brain down. Right. But if I can start perceiving pain as a thundercloud, a lightning bolt, right? Okay, there's that pain. I can see it. I can feel it. It just showed up. Bam. And its name is Bob. Bob the Thunderbolt, right? Now my brain can go, oh, okay, Bob just showed up. I can feel Bob. I'm present with Bob. Bob is obviously hurting. So instead of me being angry with Bob, I'm going to be kind to Bob. I'm going to actually love Bob, because I believe it's a human truth that when we are suffering, what we need more than anything is love. And that I know when I felt love, I can do anything. Mm-hmm. right? But if I'm going to beat up Bob and I'm going to tell Bob that I wish he would just go away, Bob's probably not going to want to work with me. So I reach out to Bob and I love Bob and I give Bob kindness and compassion. And then I say, Bob, what do you need?
Mm-hmm.
And I start developing a way to talk to these parts, listening. And I always say we listen with more than our ears. Sometimes we listen with color. Sometimes we listen and a color pops in, a sound, a temperature, a texture, a picture, whatever it is, right? We listen with all of our brain and all the different sensory abilities that we have. And so I go to Bob, my knee, the thunderbolt, and I say, Bob, what do you need right now physically? What do you need? What can I do? And Bob may say he wants to be elevated and have some ice, right? Sometimes Bob says, I just need to gently move. I need a massage. I need just to take a moment to pause and breathe. And I'm like, okay. And I give that need. I fulfill that need to Bob. And then I'll say, Bob, the knee, I'll say, what do you need mentally? Because the way I'm thinking is panic, fear, worry. I'm catastrophizing into that experience. Oh my God, my knee is hurting and it means that it's going to have to be replaced. The doctors are going to cut it out. And then I'm going to have one leg shorter than the other. And then I'm going to have all these back problems. And, then I just project.
Then we spin.
Yeah.
We spin. Exactly. And I say, okay, Bob, the way I'm thinking right now is just fear-based. It's not helping. What can I think about? What would you like to think about, Bob? That is actually going to benefit you, is going to help you heal. Right? And then I just listen. And Bob might say he wants to think about nothing and just be still. Bob might say he wants to think about silly cat videos and just laugh for a little while. Right? And so I'm going to provide that need for Bob. Right?
I think this is where I think it's so this piece of information is so important, because I think what we tend to do in this spiritual metaphysical realm is especially with like the law of attraction and this and that and all these things, is we go like, I've worked that way where I've had clients name, whatever gremlin shows up or whatever, but it's usually about, and then we bless them and we move on and we transmute their energy into something else, and we see where we can go, how we can supersede this, because we are more than this. And what you're saying is, we are more than this, and meet on the same level in some respects, meet on the same level. Absolutely. and allow the information in and allow it to inform you. And I think people are in such a hurry to get to the other side that they tend to, not allow.
Skip over that middle part.
Yeah. And what you're doing is great, but if there's a residue, or if that part isn't ready to leave, or it's not ready to heal, or if it's like crossing its arms and kind of flipping you the bird, right? It's not going to participate in the process.
100%. Right?
Yes. And also, if we believe, that everything shows up for a reason, then allow the reason to be part of the healing.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Pain has been one of my greatest teachers.
Yeah.
Pain has taught me so much. I look back at that accident of being slammed into the semi-truck. I look back at that accident and I bless that experience, because although it wasn't okay that somebody just came up randomly and decided to hit my tires, that's not okay behavior in the world, right? It actually created a world for me of such opportunity. I call it my gold in the garbage, right? Just this fact that I get to have this conversation with you guys is my gold. And it comes from that experience of pain.
Yeah.
Right? So I bless that experience and I welcome it. I would never change it. And Robin, to your point, there is so much spiritual bypassing happening in our world right now. So many people, instead of being present with the pain, I'm going to go take a yoga class, or I'm going to go pray. And I'm going to pray, and I'm going to pray, and I'm going to pray. But the pain is still there. It gets ignored. So, for example, Robin, let's say the part of me showed up as you. The part of me that's suffering, just as an example, right, showed up as Robin, right? Now, you're like my invisible friend. Nobody else can see me, like in the movies, right? I feel you. I see you. I know when you're there, and I know when you're not there.
Yeah.
Right. And as an example, if I do what most of us do, when you start acting up, Robin, you start hurting and you're throwing a temper tantrum or whatever, that pain in my knee, right? You are that starts and you're banging on it, right? If I went up to you and I said, God, Robin, and again, I'm going to sort of turn to the side because I don't want that energy going to you. But I would say, God, Robin, I hate you. I can't stand you. I wish you just go away. I'm going to pray you away, Robin. You just need to stop. Shut up, back off, right? That whole type of thing. I don't know how that feels to you. How does that feel?
Not so good.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not so good, but even if you do it the metaphysical way, the spiritual way, I mean, because I've dealt with many a gremlin where I'm like, okay, look, I'm pretty done with you, and so you need to leave, and I'm going to bless you. And I know that you've come to teach me and you've kept me protected to this moment, but now it's time to go. So you're going to move on, you know, and it's like,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Me mandating the situation, right? Like,
exactly.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of a spiritual bully that I see a lot of. And again, it's not that they can't work. It's not that this is necessarily a bad thing. But when these parts of us go deeper, and they're not just these surface level experiences, to sort of bully it and to sort of medicate it away, it doesn't work.
It never works. It never works.
And it's just going to come back, and it's going to come back even stronger and even harder. You know, I say the universe knocks. I do it on my head a lot. The universe knocks quiet, knock on wood, right? The universe knocks quietly, and it whispers in your ear, and it says, hey, you might want to deal with this. And then we go, what? I don't know.
I don't want to do. I don't want to deal with that.
I don't have time for that. And then it comes back louder. And eventually, one of my clients, I was telling her the story. She says, no, it comes back like a 2x4 and it hits you over the head.
Yeah, it's the spiritual 2x4. Bonnie's asking a great question out there.
Hey,
so,
Bonnie.
As Robin says, people are in a hurry. Therefore, how does one have patience with this process?
Woo, Robin. Patience, that ability to hold space. Yeah. And so what I do for myself and what I do with my clients is I ask to make that part their best friend. And if their best friend showed up and said, I'm really struggling today, I'm hurting today, I just need to just sit for a minute, right? We wouldn't say, oh, get off your ass, move it, come on, yo, don't be such a wuss, get out of the door, right? But we would never again do that to our friends, but we do it to the parts of us. Right. So, Robin, one of the things we need to do is change our mindset about that part and to look at that part that's suffering as a part of us that's a valuable, important part that has something to offer and contribute. And therefore, I'm going to make it my best friend. And as I would never bully my best friend, I am never, ever again going to bully this part of my body, mind, or spirit. Never again. I am going to be kind and compassionate to it. And then in building this relationship, then there's actually a concept, a thing. It's Bob the Thunderbolt, right? I can't just ignore Bob the Thunderbolt. There's a shape, there's a form, there's a name, there's a presence and an energy. And so I can't just walk away from Bob the Thunderbolt. He just got my attention. I might be able to say, Bob, you know, this is really important. I need to give this presentation. Give me 5 minutes. I'll get right back to you. Right. I might have to do that because sometimes these things do show up at times when they're ready to show up, and that doesn't always fit in our schedule. So that last part about going and talking to Bob, right? There was the mind approach. There's the body approach. And the next question to ask is to say, on that level of the heart, on that level of spirit, oneness, connection, the divine, whatever your understanding is, on that level, what can I do for you that is going to bring about your healing or support you in that process? And so those three primary questions, right? First, we make friends with a part We give it a name. We allow it to take on a shape. We speak to it as if it's a best friend, kind and compassionate. Then we actually go to it. We allow it to direct the healing. And most of the time when I give this example, people start to get it. Let's say your pain is the 15-year-old rebel and something just happened and they're in the principal's office and everybody's wagging the finger at her. The friends and the family members and the teacher, everybody's saying, you messed up. How are you going to fix this? And everybody then says, you need to do this. You need to do that. You need to make this right. You need to all that kind of stuff. Everybody's wagging their fingers. It doesn't even feel good with my doing that, right?
No.
But no, exactly. And that's how those parts of us feel.
Right.
That's how they feel, right? What if you actually went to that part and I like the 15-year-old rebel that she is, and you just go to her and you say, what do you need? How do you want to make this right for yourself? And what does that look like?
Yeah.
And people kind of go, oh yeah, I was that kid. Nobody ever asked me how to, to rectify the situation. Everybody told me how, made me do things.
Yeah.
But I never
told
felt
me how wrong I was and how terrible I was and I was a bad person. And if I wanted to be a good person, it needed to look this way. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's so beautiful. I love this process. It's very similar to, I have a similar process that I call befriending your dragons.
Yeah.
And
do you know the concept of 100 hungry dragons?
100 hungry dragons? No.
So that comes from Buddhism philosophy. And it's the idea of there are these hungry dragons.
Yeah.
And that we have to feed the dragons. And if the dragon is an addiction, then the dragon is going to come out and want its stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And if we keep feeding the dragon what it doesn't need, such as the drugs and the alcohol or whatever, we keep feeding the dragon what it doesn't need, it's going to placate it. It's going to quiet it down. It's going to drug it for a little while.
Right.
But it's going to come back even bigger and louder.
I love that. Yeah. It's exactly when one of my good friends gave me this because I talk about dragons all the time, but it's that same idea is that dragon is showing up because it has a gift. And so often we want to slam the door in the face of that dragon. And the dragon's just like, really, come on, let me in. I have this gift I want to share with you.
Yes.
And we kind of keep slamming the door repeatedly. And in that process, it never goes away. Cause it's like, hey, it's like you said with your accident. Now you look back at it and have a very different view of that experience that you couldn't have had at the time, but all of that worked because you accepted the dragon's gift and you made friends with Bob the Thunderbolt.
Exactly. So that's part of that process that I do.
Yeah.
And it makes the pie bigger too, because it's not just me being one thing. Like that Thunderbolt might say, I need to go to a nutritionist. I need a trainer. I need a spiritual counselor. I need some Reiki. I need whatever. And you start making your pie, you start making your team a bigger team. So all that stuff, that healing is happening physically, mentally, and spiritually. And it's all happening with a group of people that you're assembling as your team. And when that happens, when my clients, even if they're doing allopathic stuff, like allopathic Western medicine, I don't say it's wrong at all. If that's what the part wants, like when I worked in cancer, sometimes the part wanted to do the surgeries, sometimes it didn't.
Yeah.
Right? It's not my filter. It's my teaching people to listen to their own inner wisdom. Right?
Yeah.
And so combining those things, when we've combined stuff together, the healing is exponential. It's remarkable what happens when you're not only working on the heart level, but you're working on that obsessive mind level, and you're tonifying the body, you're strengthening the body. Just miracles happen.
It's the trifecta.
Yes.
So when did you start with the teas? When did you find that and start to incorporate that in?
Well, thank you for asking, because so much of my process was just stumbling. My accident that I slammed into the semi truck happened years ago, and there weren't acupuncturists on every corner and chiropractors and that type of stuff. So thank goodness all of that stuff is so much more readily available. But if I would have said Reiki, everybody would have looked at me very confused. You're like, what? I don't know what that is. Right? Or if they knew what it was like, that's bad. You can't do that, right? There was this pushback against that. So I started to stumble whenever anybody said, try this. I just stumbled into it. I said, okay. And I tried it. And the same thing happened with teas. Somebody was saying that I had to eat differently. I had to treat my body differently. And at the time, I grew up with a very Western American diet of, white bread and pastas and rice and all that type of stuff, right? There were canned foods in there and stuff like that. And I started to switch my diet to more organic, more fresh, like less white grain type of pasty type of stuff. And I started to understand how food can assist us in our healing. And then I met Mother Nature. And
She's
Mother
pretty cool,
Nature,
I hear.
oh my God, she's amazing. Absolutely. She's a goddess. And Mother Nature has so many things that she offers us. Right? There's all the herbs that are for anti-inflammation or antibacterial or anti-swelling, right? There's herbs that help us process, digest, right? All that type of stuff, flowers, roots, barks. And I just started studying this stuff, and it was really fun. It was really fun to see that there's this whole apothecary out there, this whole medicine cabinet that's just right in our backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a master's at that type of work. So I created these recipes, one primarily because I wanted to help my clients, because my clients would come see me. They do great while they were in the office. If they learned to apply and they really applied things, they would excel, but they weren't getting that other support. Right. And if I could bring them some of that support through Mother Nature, right? So my first tea was this. I don't know if you can see the label very well. It's called Anxiety Reducer. So this was my first tea. And I just started researching what herbs, because that was a big area that I worked in, lots of pain and anxiety issues. And I said, what can I make that's going to help with anxiety? And I started putting together this list. I started getting all of those ingredients. I started blending them together and, trying them out, seeing how they taste. And then once I had a recipe, I brought those recipes to 4 different people that were herbalists. 4 different types of herbalists, and I had them vet the recipes. And they all loved my recipes. They were like, these are amazing. These are great. Wow, I drink these. And the nice thing is they taste good too. So I crafted all of these different blends to not only continue my healing, because I, again, like you, believe that if I can heal, then so can you. So if I can get myself to heal, then I know that I can support you in that same thing. So I'm my own guinea pig, right?
That's beautiful.
So the teas were really a part of that exploration.
So I'm going to just share the URL for if you want to explore more of the teas, Peter's teas. You can check that out. And I forgot to mention, we have a little giveaway that we'll be doing at the end of the show. And so if you want to have an opportunity to enter our little giveaway, just share a comment, say hello, ask a question, whatever you want to do, and we will draw a name out of a hat, so to speak, at the end of the show.
I love that. That's great.
So I want to ask you more about the tea. So I see that you have iced tea. So it's obviously good hot or iced.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, so just using the anxiety one as an example, have you done any work with it with kids, like ADHD kids or
I have not. No, I have not. I am very interested in that field. It's not one that I've gone into. I've done a lot of digestive colitis, those IBS, those types of issues. My practice is kind of broken down over the years into gut issues, cancer issues, and anxiety. as well as addiction. So oftentimes I'll have comorbid cases where there'll be somebody with anxiety issues who had cancer, or somebody with anxiety who has addiction issues or something like that. And those are the primary areas that I've worked in, but I have not worked with a lot of kids or around ADHD. No.
So what has been your biggest, as you've kind of, you've got, what I love about your story is you've got so many tools in your toolbox, and how do you decide, which arrow you're pulling out of your quiver, which tool you're grabbing out of your toolbox in any given situation? How are you intuiting
oh my gosh,
what somebody needs?
So the outward answer is somebody comes in, they present in a particular way, and I know if they're presenting very anxious, I need to get them in their skin and present. So I need to do a lot of calming, meditative, stillness type of work, right? If somebody's in pain, I need to get in and identify with the pain, invite the pain to drop down. If they're very analytical people, I tend to use more NLP tools. If they're more open people, I'll do more hypnotic type of stuff or medical imagery type of things of that sort. But the truth is that I meditate. So that's part of the truth. That deeper truth is that I meditate before a lot of my clients. Right. And I often just say, Spirit, guide me to whichever way this person needs.
Okay.
And there have been times I am, not the encyclopedia healer of the world. There have been times in my practice where I find someone was abused, someone was tortured. I mean, the stories that I have heard, and if you are in the book, they let me write about them. Those stories, I find myself catching my breath and going and having a conversation with my higher power and saying, Spirit, I don't know what to do. Bless me in this moment and let me say or do or guide this person in the way that they need.
Mm-hmm. So you do.
And I tell you, 17 years almost I've been doing this. I have never come to a point where that failed me.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. So one of the things that has intrigued me most about your very intriguing, interesting story is you talked about at the beginning of how you teach folks to be their own medical intuitive.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about how you do that?
Yeah, I I made this new friend a few years ago, and she's a medical intuitive. And she was just like, your work is so complementary to mine. I wanted to go through a process with you. And I'm like, okay. So I just took her through a process. And she stopped and she said, do you know you're doing what I do? And I said, I don't know that. Right. She's all, I go into people and I see for people what they need as a medical intuitive. I go in and I look at people's bodies, and I learned over the years how to read people's bodies, people's energies, how to perceive things, and that type of stuff. You're actually teaching them how to do it on their own. Mm-hmm. So she's like, and it's not that it's a threat to me, because, in certain situations, you want somebody to come in and tell you what's going on. And medical intuitives are amazing. Absolutely. And if we could start to listen to our own wisdom, right? So that ability to tune in, to listen, to have those conversations is like, I'm not saying it is being, it is like learning how to be a medical intuitive.
Yeah.
And that's just by what I was told. I'm not a medical intuitive, so.
it's basically what you talked about before, the what do you need mentally? What do you need physically? What do you need spiritually? And getting to the answers to those three questions is really how you be your own medical intuitive.
And it continues, because it's not a single conversation. And that's where a lot of people that sort of, fix it now and we're done. Right. That spiritual bypassing. Okay, well, I know that part of me wants to do this, so I'm just going to go do that. And No, because if that anxiety has been around since you were 5 years old,
Right.
or that pain that you're experiencing has been around in your body, it has roots. And this needs to be an ongoing conversation of healing.
Yeah.
So it's not just you have one conversation and you're done. It's developing a relationship, and it's really learning how to develop that relationship. You know, my knee has gone through so much in
Right.
these decades of healing, right?
Mhm.
It went from being okay to not being okay. Within a year of my accident, I was dancing,
Wow.
which
Wow.
was according to the doctors a medical miracle.
Right.
But my body, if I would have had somebody teaching me what I do now, and if there would have been things like prolotherapy and acupuncture and chiropractic available to me at that time, which there really wasn't that I knew of, not
Right.
that it wasn't there, it wasn't available to me, then I may have had a somewhat of a dance career. But my body just said no. I literally collapsed on the dance floor in a master's class. And I knew in my mind, in that moment, in my heart, that I had to find something else, that was it. And I never danced again after that experience, right? I knew that. And because I respected my knee and made my knee my friend, and I started speaking to it and talking to it, saying, what do you need over all this time? What can I do? What can I help with? And my relationship has come to a point where I grew all the cartilage back in my knee, something that allopathic medicine says is impossible to do.
Right.
Right.
I grew all that cartilage back and got rid of my arthritis. Right?
See, I keep thinking that's possible. I keep thinking that because I have so many people talking about, oh, I have to get this knee replaced and bone on bone and da 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 da. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going there.
Yeah. I was a candidate for bone on bone knee replacement surgery. I was a candidate for that. And I found something called Prolotherapy. I'd been doing things over the years to strengthen my knee, to support my knee, to grow my knee through my diet, all kinds of stuff, right? Through exercise, diet, all those types, to make sure my body was not inflammatory, right? All those types of things. And then I found Prolotherapy with a doctor at UCLA. And my regular doctor laughed at me. My regular doctor was like, that's stupid. But this was at the elite sports medical doctor at UCLA. Right? I'm like, I'm going to listen to you. And so he did this thing called Prolotherapy. And it literally is an injection of dextrose, of sugar, liquid sugar. And they inject it into the joint or any joint cavity, right? Or ligament or tendon. And that creates what's called acute inflammation, not chronic, acute inflammation. So you can't be on any kind of anti-inflammatories at the time of doing this because you want the inflammation. So the granules of sugar, kind of like the whole pearl effect, right? In an oyster, when the sand goes into the pearl, right? Those granules go into my joint. The joint becomes inflamed. The inflammation calls the body to grow collagen. Collagen is the building block for ligaments, tendons, and cartilage. I grew my cartilage back in my knee.
Wow. That's amazing.
Pretty amazing.
It is amazing.
Stuff, right?
It is amazing.
Is it going to work for everybody? No. It's just like a surgery, right? It's not going to work for some people, just like a medicine, a pharmaceutical. Sometimes it works, sometimes it won't. For the people that I send, generally it works. At least 75% of the people that I have sent to do prolotherapy, and again, we check in with the knee, right? We talked about, Bob, I've discovered this new thing. What do you think about it? Do you give me a thumbs up? Do you give me a thumbs down? Are you neutral? What do you think about it, Bob? I'm not going to do it if Bob doesn't want to do it, because if Bob doesn't want to do it, I'm wasting my time.
Absolutely. And probably it works for most of your people because they're telling themselves a different story. They're
potentially.
But I mean, they're having the conversations with their body. So they're going in that mind frame.
They're receptive.
Yeah, they're receptive. I know Bonnie has go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I'm going to get to all the comments, but I was just going to say what I love about everything that you just said, and it's such a wonderful reminder, is that it's not a one and done, right? It's the image that popped into my head when you did that was like going and weeding. And I remember going and, my dad would make me weed the garden as a little kid, and I'd just pull the weeds out at the surface and not get the root. Right. And then, a week later it's back bigger and, uglier. And it's that ongoing relationship allows you to kind of pull the weed thoroughly.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I can say it that way.
Well, and so you're not only getting the top of the weed, but because you're doing the body, mind, spirit, and you know what that means, and you're applying what it means, you're actually getting down into the core of the healing.
Absolutely. And so I think it's just again, we touched on it earlier, but sometimes on the spiritual path, we want instant results, and we want it when we want it, how we want it. And we've all been there, I think. I'm spiritual. Why is this happening to me?
Right.
Yeah.
So we just got a couple comments to catch up on. So John, hi, glad you're here. John. And then Bonnie says, "I love tea." I think she means you, Peter. It's wonderful to know that Peter has given it healing properties, and she says.
So I just want to Peter is transformed to John, and John, you called Bonnie Robin, so you guys are on the same wavelength. So it's Peter and Bonnie. Okay,
exactly. And so she says, "You're a miracle. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm inspired because of it."
Thank you, Bonnie.
And then, oh, good. Yes, Spring Detox. I'm glad you're finding the show of value. Glad you're here, Bonnie, as always. And Peter radiates healing love. Indeed, he does, John. You hit that nail on the head.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And Bonnie's chuckling. So fantastic. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure.
While you're doing that, I'm going to just share the cover so everyone knows exactly what it looks like.
Boom. Beautiful. So I was so blessed with this book. I had gone on a mission to just take a bunch of essays and things that I've written to compile those into a book. And in doing so, I invited somebody to help me because I'd never written a book before, and that was Brian Hunt. And Brian started to put the book into chapters. And as he did, Brian was so emotionally affected by the work that the book took several years to complete, because Brian would take a topic on one of the concepts of the Convergence Healing process, and then he would apply it to his life, and he would have to go through the healing process and then come back and write. So because Brian became such an integral part of the book, I made him a co-author. But I put this book really together for my clients. And a week after it was self-published, it was purchased by Simon & Schuster. And we have been through Simon, published with Simon & Schuster. You can get a copy of the paperback through Barnes & Noble or any bookstore, Amazon. You can also get the Kindle version online, and you can also get the audio version. I recorded it as an audio because when people are in pain, sometimes it's really hard to read.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. That's great to know.
Yeah.
That's wonderful to know. And Carol says, "I'm listening, and so is my knee."
Nice, Carol.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Did we miss anything?
I don't know. It seems like there's so much.
I know.
I could keep talking for hours. So.
I know. I love it. This is so great. This is so great. So if you have somebody who is experiencing pain and they're trying to do this on their own, what advice would you give them in terms of what's the first thing, like the absolute first thing they should do to kind of start navigating through the process that you outlined?
Okay, so that first thing is to absolutely stop the abuse. Love that part of you. That part of you that is suffering needs that love. It needs that kindness. It needs that compassion. And it might, sometimes these parts kind of, like I did earlier, they kind of cross their arms and say, "What, you're going to pay attention to me now?" Because you may have been nice to it once and didn't be nice to it. So sometimes I like to give the metaphor that these parts of us that are suffering are sometimes like an abused dog. And when that dog is backed into the corner, you can't go and force it to talk to you. You can't force it to lick your hand or be nice. And if you do, it might just bite you back.
Yeah.
So what you do is you sit with it with your back to it. You put your hand out to the side, maybe behind your body, right? You bring a treat. You let it get comfortable with it. You give it that love that it needs. And then the dog will slowly start to approach you. And it actually doesn't take that much time. When you're genuine and sincere and you go to these parts and you can apply the whole Ho'oponopono process, right? Thank you. I'm so sorry. I love you. Forgive me.
Yeah.
Right? You can apply that process to that part of you and just let it come to you. Let it take on a shape and a form, right? Give it a name and give it that love. If the only thing you do is start becoming kind to it instead of embarrassed or ashamed of it or resentful of it, that is, I've seen that alone create little miracles in people's lives.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And it's just such a wonderful reminder, because we all want it when we want it.
And
we don't want that restraining order on that. We don't want that restraining order on that inner critic.
No, gosh, no. That brings a whole other problem, right?
Exactly.
And we forget that we try to bully ourselves. We forget that our bodies are really conglomerations.
Yeah.
They're really systems that are all working together. They all have their own personality in a way. They all have their own opinions. They all have their own needs. And it's our job to be the captain of the ship. I like giving that metaphor. And there's all the parts that make up the ship. And that if we walk away of those parts because we're overwhelmed, we're in too much pain or whatever it is, those parts will step up. They will do it unconsciously. And they will drive the ship from the unconscious patterns and behaviors. And if that means that you need to be sick because that's part of your habit and behavior, it is going to perpetuate that pain or that dis-ease.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Carol is asking, after being out of your body, did you find a change in your belief system? Ooh, that's a great question, Carol.
Yeah. So after I died, or when I died, there's a few things. So I like this little controversy. I'm going to bring this up. So on the other side, when I died and I was over there was nobody there to greet me. There was it was amazing. It was beautiful. I often say that death is the best thing that ever happened to me. It's the most blissful, joyful, excited, loving. I don't know the words. There's not enough to describe that level of deep, deep love, acceptance, and connection. Yeah. And on the other side there, I was curious because I had an idea that I thought my dead dog was going to be there when I died. I thought my great-grandmother was going to be there when I died. And I was very aware that I was dead and I was not in my body because I saw my body. And now I'm someplace else. And this place is amazing, but there's nobody here. And I spent a good amount of time in that place. And then someone showed up, and I can go in the whole story about that. But they basically said that I had to leave, that I wasn't supposed to be here. So
talk about getting the door slammed in your face.
Oh, I was pissed. I actually flipped them. I won't do it because I know we're on Facebook and all. I flipped the birdie and I told that person to F off. So I told God or whoever that was to F off, right? And I came back on the,
probably not the first time. Probably not the first time you heard it.
Yeah, probably not the first time you heard it. Yeah. So I tend to think that and people will have controversy on this. I tend to think that accidents are actually real, that we have free will, and that, let's say, the whole of humanity, of the spirit, of divine consciousness as humans, whatever it is, the whole of us is moving in the direction towards enlightenment, towards wisdom, towards love, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And this wave is going, but within that wave, there are little personalities. There are us, human beings. And we are messy and we make mistakes and we bump into each other. And we do all of that type of stuff.
Right.
And if there's mistakes and if we bump into each other, then there's accidents. And I had an accident and I was on the other side before I was meant to be there. And the other side confirmed it and said, wait, you're not on the schedule. There's not even a train that's supposed to be here. The room is empty, right? So people tend to disagree with me because they tend to say, well, that was meant to happen or it's divine order. And I say, yes, I believe that there is a divine order, that as this massiveness of consciousness, we are moving in a direction of love. But within that massiveness of consciousness, things happen and free will exists and we can make mistakes and things happen that maybe weren't intended to happen or didn't need to happen.
Mm.
And so some people would debate me and say, well, no, it was meant to be. It was meant that you had that experience so you could be here today. And I say, I like that. Sure. I'm not going to say you're wrong, but I also am going to say that doesn't quite resonate with my experience. Because when I got to the other side, the response literally was, what are you doing here?
Bye.
Yeah, you need to go. Wait, you weren't supposed to walk through that door. Get out of here.
That's great. That's great. So Bonnie is asking, what is your belief about death now that you've experienced it? What would you share with someone that is facing death?
Oh gosh, I'm getting involved in the Death Cafe movement. I love talking about death.
What's the Death Cafe movement?
Oh God, you haven't heard of it? It's amazing.
Oh.
And actually, Bonnie, it started in the UK. And it's these people who just get together in coffee houses and talk about death. It's amazing. And it's to normalize death. It's to make death part of the continuation process of life. And that's how I've always perceived death, right? Even before I had this experience, for some reason with who I am, death wasn't a frightening thing to me. The death process is not an enjoyable process. At least the part where you're going through the pain of letting go of life, right? I kind of look at it as coming into life. That baby is squeezing through another person's body, is leaving behind safety, security, warmth, all your needs met. Coming into the world has, whether I remember some of it personally, but it was a painful experience for me. Coming into the world, that sucked. Being in the world was great, right? But coming into the world, it hurts. You know, the caterpillar coming out of the cocoon, out of the chrysalis, that hurts. And the pain of that is a necessary process of its development.
Right.
I look at humans and I think, well, why are we any different? The process of leaving physical form generally probably is, and for me, was a painful process. Now, I jumped out of my body before my physical body went through that pain of hitting the semi-truck. I literally jumped out and watched it. I didn't need to go through that. Maybe it was because I already have in other lives or other experiences. Maybe it just wasn't part of my lesson that I didn't need to do that, right? So going to the other side, for me, in that moment of jumping out of my body, not having that pain, and then showing up on the other side, that was relatively pain-free, right? But I did it really fast. And I did it in a way that most people don't do it.
Right.
And I've also held the hands as people died. And that process of going through death, that coming in and out, the death rattle, right? Of the different parts of the body as the body lets go. Maybe the person is in that experience, having that experience because that's part of their learning. They need to know that experience of transitioning. Or maybe they've already done it a few times. I happen to believe in past lives. Maybe they've already done it a few times and they don't feel any of that pain. They just kind of jump in the body to say hi every now and then they jump back out. And when it's time for go, they just leave. Right?
Yeah.
But I do tend to default on the side that the birth process and the death process have physical pains that are just part of this world that we live in. And are they wrong or bad? Are they to be avoided? I don't know. And I think most of the time we medicate people as they're going through death, not for them, but for us. Because it's disturbing to us to see them what we perceive as suffering.
Right.
But they may not even be in that body suffering. Their body may be going through that process.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Maybe they are, and they're meant to do that. Maybe they're not.
That's such a great reminder. And it's, your own experience of jumping out of your body before it hit the truck is a perfect example of that, we have our own assumptions tied to the experiences of others, and they're not always accurate.
No. And,
So Bonnie says she's familiar with the Death Cafe. She loves it. She's a member of the UK chapter. And she said there is a chapter in Oakland. If anyone's interested, just Google it.
Well,
Thank you, Bonnie.
I'm gonna go to one online that's in Bozeman, Montana. That's gonna be my first one this month on March 17th. That's in Bozeman, Montana. And I'm looking into starting one out here in the desert. I think it could be just a valuable experience for people.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So I hope I answered your question.
Sorry.
I think you did. I think we definitely have to have you back. We have to do our show on death and dying and living, and Bonnie actually is a grief expert. So she does a lot of work with grief and loss. So I feel a theme coming on.
There we go.
I feel a healing coming on.
So Carol is asking quickly if you can go over I think it was the 100 dragons.
Yeah, the 100 dragons. So the basic, again, this is a adaptation of a Buddhist teaching. Mm-hmm. And it's that anything that is out of alignment with you and the divine is a dragon. And the dragons are whatever the concept is, whatever you're feeding the dragon. If the dragon is angry, the dragon is in pain, then whatever you're feeding it isn't what the dragon actually needs. Right. And so that's why I gave the idea of drugs. Right. If your dragon is actually in need of love or self-esteem or self-care or acceptance or trauma relief, and you keep feeding the dragon that drug, alcohol, whatever it is, sex, whatever numbs it out, then the dragon is just going to get bigger and bigger and angrier and angrier. And to recognize that dragons aren't bad things. Dragons are actually protectors. They protect valuable things.
And they're cute.
And they're adorable. We've kind of made what dragons in Western mythology, the dragon is protecting something of value, which means that we have to steal what it's protecting and kill the dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Yes.
We like to win.
Yes.
We're the strongest.
Yeah, that's not.
No, that's really wonderful. The 100 dragons is sounds like something I need to dig into more, because it sounds like it's right up my alley.
Well, it's a great metaphor, and it's fun, and people get it. And when they can make friends with their dragon, kind of like the language that I'm already using, right? When we make friends with the dragon that they may feel is the demon or breathing down their neck wanting the drugs, and we say, what do you really want, dragon? Because those drugs are just going to make you more angry.
Yeah.
What do you really want? Then the dragon actually becomes the advocate for the healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, the drug or any addiction, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anything that gnaws at us.
Yeah. So the dragon is that. The dragon is anything that gnaws at us, right? And there's generally, they broke it down, and there's basically 100 things that would be trauma, that would be loss, that would be, some loss, grief, that would be instability. Those types of things would be the dragons, right? Yeah. Kind of like the hierarchy of needs is another way of looking at that.
That makes total sense. Total sense. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much, Peter, for joining us. This has been a wonderful show.
We still have a
really
giveaway.
Wonderful insights, huh?
Yeah, we have our giveaway.
We still have our giveaway.
I haven't forgotten. I was just thanking Peter. And so, Peter, in honor of your awesomeness. I'm going to let you pick a number between 1 and 21.
Oh, great. Let's say 12.
12. Let me see. Where do we end up? 1, 2. Oh, wait, I know. 10. So that would be Ms. Bonnie Morgan.
Bonnie Morgan. All right, Bonnie has to DM.
Bonnie, you're our winner.
Bonnie has to DM her address.
Yeah, so Bonnie, if you can DM Robin your address, and we will share that with Peter, and he will get you your tea.
And what tea does she get? Is there a certain one or?
Well, I had my instinct today said the anxiety reducer, so I pulled that one off the shelf.
Yay.
So I hope Bonnie likes that one.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you. This has been so wonderful. And so just a reminder, if anybody wants to connect with Peter, his website is convergencehealing.com. And he is also he has a YouTube channel. And so if you go to youtube.com/convergence healing, you can check out his videos and just partake of more of his insight, inspiration, and wisdom. So thank you, Peter. This has been wonderful, and we have to have you back soon.
You're on.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend and week, and we will see you. Oh, wait, one final comment. Bonnie says, yay, love it, and love you, Peter. So we will see everyone back here next week. Have a wonderful week and a wonderful weekend. Take care. Lots of love. Bye.